Almost every time you've added a control in this course, you've changed its ID property instead of leaving it at the default value. Using consistent names for your controls is one of the most important things to do when working with C# or ASP.NET. Whenever you create a control, you should always set its ID property to something meaningful before doing anything else with it. In this lesson, you'll create a number of controls and set their ID properties according to the naming convention used by this course. First, open the My Project sample file from your Sample Files folder. And add a new web form called namingtest.aspx. You learned how to do this in Lesson 1.7. Switch to Design View and add a label control to the page. You learned how to do this in Lesson 1.14. Next, add 3 button controls to the page. Set the text property of the first button to Monday. Set the text property of the second button to Tuesday. And set the text property of the third button to Wednesday. You now have buttons that say Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday on them, but their ID properties still say Button 1, Button 2, and Button 3. Although you could work with them this way, it would be very confusing when you looked at the code, as you'd have no idea which button was which without checking the page. Set the ID property of the first button to Button Monday. Set the ID property of the second button to Button Tuesday. And set the ID property of the third button to Button Wednesday. This course always uses the convention control type followed by name, which is always in mixed case. Using this convention, it's always easy to understand which type of control the code is working with and what the control does. Set the ID property of the label control to Label Day. You're now going to see the IntelliSense menu at work. First, add a click event handler to the Button Monday control. You learned how to do this in Lesson 3.2. Next, type button into the new event handler. As you can see, the IntelliSense menu has appeared. Because you named all of your buttons properly, you can see all of them listed together in the IntelliSense menu. Along with Button Monday, Button Tuesday, and Button Wednesday, you will notice a lot of other entries in the IntelliSense menu that begin with button. These all come out of the .NET framework. The one that's simply called button is in fact the control that is added when you drag and drop a button control onto the page. These items are appearing because of the lines at the top of the code behind file that start with using. You'll learn more about the using lines in Lesson 6.3. Delete the button text now and type label. As you can see, the IntelliSense menu has appeared again. Choose Label Day by double-clicking on it. Alternatively, you can scroll down to it using the arrow keys and press Enter. You'll learn more about IntelliSense in Lesson 5.1. Next, add the code .text equals Monday. With this code, you can see at a glance that the Button Monday control will set the Label Day control's text property to Monday when it is clicked. If you hadn't named your controls, here is how it would have looked. As you can see, by naming your controls, you have made your code a lot easier to understand and work with. You've now completed Lesson 4.1. Name controls correctly.